Here we go. We're being live streamed. Ooh, I'm going to sneeze. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It is Angie Atkinson, and I'm here with the lovely and talented Lise Colucci. Lise, welcome back.
Hello, thank you.
Always my pleasure to have you here. So today, while we're waiting for everyone to get in, I'll just remind you, first of all, that for those of you who don't know, Lise is one of my fellow coaches at queenbean.com, and she's amazing. You're going to love her if you don't know her already. Secondly, keep your eye on the chat. When our mod squad gets here, they will share reminders and links and things you need to know about the chat today, as well as how to get back in touch with us and how to stay in touch with our weekly streams. And what else? What else? Well, let's just jump in. All right. So, excuse me. Here we go. There's people. Hello, beautiful ladies. Hello, Kelly. All right. So here we go. Today, we're going to talk about the catalyst for leaving a narcissist. And what we mean by that is what was the thing or what will be the thing that made you or will make you finally leave? What's your final straw? So, Lise, what was your final straw with your ex?
This is a tricky question because there wasn't a straw. There was my choice to accept the reality plus it wasn't anything they did. Let's put it that way. It was my own seeing reality for what it was. There's a quote going around, you can't unsee it, but actually you kind of can sometimes, where you go into that amnesia state and you cognitive dissonance and all of that. So it was like fighting through that plus complete gray rock and watching what happened and watching the temper tantrums and watching him spin out of control. And that was, enough.
So it's kind of a slow buildup, do you think?
It was a slow buildup.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. Yes. For me, with my ex-husband, it was really bad. I caught him doing something he shouldn't have been doing. And my kid was really close to him at the time, physically. And that was pretty much the final straw. I'm not going to go into much more detail than that for now, because I'd probably get demonetized if I did. Yeah, with that being said, the other thing that happened with my parent was, I've told this story a lot of times, but I had been pulling away a little bit, and it really made her angry. And there was like a big incident where it started with, I was trying to take my kids on vacation. It was the first year that we could afford to actually go somewhere else other than our own state. And so we were going to take them all to the beach in Florida. Well, my parent decided to, with my oldest, invited only my oldest to go to California. And I was like, okay, that's fine. That's a good experience for him, but would you just make it after our vacation, which is whatever day I told her it was. Well, then a few days later, she called while I was getting everyone out the door for school and work and everything. And she said, I need to know right now if, you can go, if he can go on this day. And I said, well, I told you what days we were going. I can't remember right now. I'm outside getting everybody out the door. Could you please wait 15 minutes? I'll call you back. She said, no, I can't wait. So I called. Yeah. And it was urgent and she had to know right now. And so I just asked my husband, I was like, well, what do you think about these dates? He goes, sure, as long as it's outside of our dates. I said, fine, after our dates for the vacation. Well, long story short, it's too long of a story already. Long story short, it was before our day. As soon as I got inside, I checked, it was before our day. So I called and I said, hey, our vacation's on this day. Could you please move yours to after as we agreed? And she said no, and she started screaming. She already bought the tickets and long screaming argument. Eventually she hung up on me. Then her husband called me and told me about myself in so many ways. And longer story short, they ended up calling CPS on us as retaliation. And you can read the rest of that on the website if you're interested, but it was a very horrifying betrayal. And that was like when you mess with my kids, even though I was not personally strong enough at that time, I didn't even know what no contact was. It definitely changed everything. I literally felt when I realized that she had done it, which I found out when they were sitting there after they'd gone through my whole house and all my drawers and all my stuff, talked to my kids. They decided it was a revenge call. And so then they handed me this paper that showed the whole transcript of the call. And sure enough, it was her. So
wow.
Yeah. And
Yeah, both of these things though were about you were able to see it when your kids when they mess with your kids.
yeah, which is not
Mhm.
the healthiest choice, not the right
It's
answers,
okay. It's for
but
you
it's how
though.
it went.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh-huh.
And so, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So other than that, I think it comes down to being able to recognize that you can walk away. Do you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like it
Mhm.
never occurred to me that I had the right to do that. And when I did it with my mother, I had no idea, and with my ex-husband, I had no idea. Like I didn't even think about no contact. I never heard of that. You know what I mean? I just knew that in those moments I was done. No. And so that's sort of what led me to all the research I've been doing
Right,
over
makes
the
sense.
last 15 years or
Mhm.
whatever. So yeah, anyway.
I think everybody has a breaking point too, and a specific, like, don't cross this line.
Yes. And nobody knows what it is until it happens, right?
Right.
I think.
Except
I
for I
think.
want to say one thing, and that is don't wait for your breaking point.
Yes.
Do your best to see and accept what the person is before you reach that breaking point if you can. With both
Yes.
of the scenarios, I mean, Angie, it sounds like yours was in a situation where you didn't even really you didn't have half the knowledge you have now about
No,
narcissism, or
not even.
even a fraction.
Right.
Whereas hopefully what we're trying to do is give people the information so they don't have to wait as long or
Yeah.
to the point of the breaking point, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's really why I started blogging about it for my own self, because I just needed to understand. And I was a journalist by trade before. So I researched like a journalist, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I had cited my sources, I did all the things. And I basically took the emotions that I was feeling and connected them to the facts so that I could understand.
Right.
Well, and I published it on my personal blog because that's what I do. And now that personal blog is our site that
Right.
it became our site.
It's big now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting but people related, and at that time there was very little on the internet like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty interesting. But I think the catalyst factor, I don't think people really realize all the time to even, I did a short and I did a TikTok on this, and one of the people that responded to it said their catalyst was like an argument over cigarettes and barbecue or something.
Right. It can be the most interesting little thing. And it's like
Exactly.
the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, right? It is enough's enough.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And for some of us, that's going to take what it took for me. I was horribly betrayed and
Right.
whatever, through my children.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's going to be like that. It's going to be little thing over little thing over little thing. And eventually, bam, there's the big thing.
Right.
It's messed up stuff. So yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting thing. So tell me, have you seen any like really strange catalysts with clients or heard of any weird ones or interesting ones?
Oh my gosh, blank.
No worries.
Often I talk to people who are on the end of a discard, not so much leaving.
Okay.
And usually if they're coming to me, they're struggling to find the catalyst.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
That makes
Yep,
sense.
I've seen that too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well,
tricky. But I think that's so important though. Struggling to find the catalyst sometimes mean looking inward at why it's difficult for you to let go, why it's difficult for you to, or why you're accepting this sort of behavior and by accepting, I know you're not like, oh, please give it to me, but
right.
Why it's happening, like tolerating it to the some levels, and finding, like, that's what I had to do. It wasn't so much it became less about him and more about me. Why am I staying in this? Versus, because I did have the knowledge, and I did have, like, by the time I got there, I'd been in therapy long enough to know what was going on and to write a book. Not that I wrote a book, but you know what I mean? Like, it was enough information in my head that pretty much led to what I'm doing now, right?
Right.
It was research in action, unfortunately. But
well, that's exactly how I kind of accidentally figured it out. But back then I had to go to the dang library.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it took a while to figure out that it wasn't the one thing I thought it was that I was hanging on to wasn't that, it was something entirely different.
Right.
And then it was like, oh, all I have to do is that? Okay.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But to me, it felt huge having to go. I mean, even with my parent, although it happened in a split second, it felt, it changed everything. But we're here to talk about catalyst. So let's stay on that. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Let's jump into the chat, shall we? Mm-hmm. Hello, everybody. Thank you to our mod squad. So far, I see Simmarine and Bonnie and Jack, of course. Hello, everybody. For those of you who, I think she already said it in the chat, Hufflepuff is now Simmarine for political reasons. And I respect that fully. Okay. Let's see here. Mima. Oh, here we go. Gosh, Mima. She said, my ex by 2 months forgot our 41st anniversary in October. Friend asked, did you tell him? I said, no way. Yeah. Oh, wait, I missed one. Hold on a minute. Let me go back up. Okay. Oh, I missed a whole bunch. How did this happen? Let me get back to the top. See what happened to me. It happens every time.
It's the way chat is, guys.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Mima Dragon says, mine took $83,000 out of joint savings last December. I mean, that can be devastating. Mine also took money out of our account, and it was really close to the catalyst. And I was just this far from saying that's it. When I had the other incident. So, but we didn't have $83,000. We were broke as a joke back then. So it was really like I couldn't even pay the rent,
But don't even take $10 if that's the case, right?
Exactly. Like it was bad. He took all the money he had. I mean, it was like probably several $100s, but probably not 1,000 at the time. We were broke, young people. Okay. Let's see here. Mystique's. Hello, Mystique. Let's see. I just thought, there we go. Kelly says, when I actually realized what I was dealing with on my 55th birthday, he forgot my birthday, number one. Number two, I knew I had to break up with him. And she watched videos and she said, she's breaking up with a narcissist is like hugging a porcupine. You must do it very carefully. Right. Interesting. Yeah. Let's see here. And then, hello, Elizabeth. She says, my catalyst to cut off my dysfunctional family that I cannot imagine having a healthy relationship or friendship with until I'm in connection with them. But it's quite painful too. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Tammy Moore has a question for us. She says, what are some reasons besides childhood trauma that people become narcissists? My ex never had anything bad happen to him or his family. Okay, let's talk about that really quick.
Yeah,
lots of things. Yeah.
Being a golden child. Of another narcissist could be, or of just being catered to, never being taught that empathy matters, being taught that to get your way means throwing the temper tantrums and being indulged and being, in a big way. Yeah. Usually someone is toxic, I think, in those situations on some level when they're doing this with children. Yeah. What other reasons could someone be? They could be born with no empathy. The part of their brain that empathy would normally fire is not firing. Right.
Or they could, there's such a thing as acquired situational narcissism, where someone gets a lot of money or a lot of fame very quickly, and then they become narcissists.
Right. They're what is the word? Entitled in that sense.
Yeah.
In a big way.
Yeah. And then that, like you were talking about with the parents, who maybe were too permissive. Sometimes it's just that they were, parents were working a lot, kids were left alone a lot. They felt emotionally abandoned. Sometimes we don't recognize what's bad and what's in a person. Like if a person grows up being a golden child, let's say, they have all these expectations and all these things, but we might not recognize that, like I've had several clients who were heiresses to big money, and they felt completely abandoned because their parents would put them with nannies and go out in the world and do the thing. You know what I mean? And so there are different types of trauma that we might not even recognize as trauma.
Right. And it could be a subtle version of that. You're right. Somebody said recently that they just read something about narcissism at a certain age, that's when the brain, that they don't have proof of it before a certain age. So children, and I said, yeah, but how do you test a practical MRI empathy on a baby?
Right.
I don't know that there's any way to know that, right?
Babies don't have empathy. They don't get it until around the age of 2.
Right. So it's, so I think it's, I just personally, because you see a household with, like, let's just take a traumatic household and 3 kids, and only one becomes a narcissist. Same situations happening to all three. Let's just assume that, or similar, right? And so, are they born that way? Is it the way they chose their developmental personality?
Right. Their attachment style might be.
Attachment style.
Mm-hmm. There's right. And so this is the thing. Let's say that mom was depressed, and so she didn't want to hold the baby, and so the baby didn't get that important bonding time. You know what I mean? Or the baby's adopted, and the baby, didn't bond with anyone, or they sat in the hospital for 30 days first, and then all the attention they got was having their diaper changed by a nurse, or maybe being held now and then, but not real parent love. You know what I mean? There's lots of different reasons that can happen outside of trauma. However, trauma is sometimes hidden, and we just don't recognize it as trauma because they were too little, but that really could affect a person for the rest of their lives. Yeah.
Right. I think that comes down to like how a particular person's personality as they grow takes on experiences in life.
Yeah.
For one kid, a divorce could be traumatic, and for another kid, a divorce can be like, whatever, my parents don't get along. Right. Or maybe like difficult, but they get through it. Or like there's a varying all in between. And for somebody that could be the ultimate abandonment, even when there is support offered. So.
Yep, exactly. Yep. All right, let's see here. And then you have situations like where we have situations where one of our kids, like let's say one of our kids has a narcissist parent, and because the data is shaky on whether it's nurture or nature. I think it's primarily nurture, but there is some evidence that would say that some people are genetically
I think
affected.
I think that genetic component is big.
Yeah. But I mean, then you have to go, well, okay, but you're looking at generations of abuse and trauma. So is it?
Exactly. Well, that does. That comes down to, what do they call that? Generational healing.
Yes, and this is what I think our larger mission is to break the healing or break the trauma in our own right.
Break the chain.
Break the chain. All right, hope that's helpful, Tammy. Let us know if you have other questions. Okay, let's see here. Hey, Peggy. Kelly said hers also moved his troubled 15-year-old daughter in so the ex would wash back child support. So I'm sure that was not, putting a troubled teen in any marriage who doesn't belong to, even one who does belong to both parents, but teens are hard. I have two at home right now, so all right. Any thoughts on that, Lise? The bringing the troubled child back in so the ex would wash back child support.
I can see where it would be a catalyst. It's like enough. I can't take anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Now, Simmering says, the catalyst for me was when my ex decided to give me an ultimatum. We had been engaged for over a year by then, and he said I could marry him or stay with my church. Guess what I chose? Good for you. Yeah, somebody shouldn't tell you who you should be religiously, in my personal opinion. Okay. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's good that you weren't so groomed to the point where that actually was a choice. Like you saw that that's not actually a choice. You've actually just made the decision for me. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's powerful. And I'll tell you something. I think that if the church was giving you comfort at that time, then, that's important too, because if you're with someone who makes you feel miserable anyway, it's easy to overlook stuff. But when it comes down to such a personal choice and they're telling you who you are and who you're supposed to be, Yeah. Okay. Mima Dragon says, I took my in-laws insulting me until the children were treated second class like me. Only hubby was real family. He got double cash on his birthday too. So they basically intentionally minimized you and your kids and treated you like you weren't part of the family. And that's definitely a toxic family thing. What are your thoughts on that, Lise?
Yeah, it's again, I can see that that is a good catalyst. Yeah.
For sure. Okay, Jack says, here's mine. My mother had a little brother that died of Rh disease before he was 2. Her mother saw me as a replacement son. Narc rage further things along, I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, and then I suppose that distills down to childhood trauma for my mother, but I have stories that suggest it goes even farther than that, back than that. And I believe that. tell you something. That's really interesting, Jack. And this is another way that I think, someone could, the way his mother was angry because his grandmother basically tried to treat him like he was his uncle. That's really hard. And on, it probably, the narcissist rage making things worse, because I can tell you, I've had family members try to own my kids. And that never worked out very well for them, because it used to really bother me a lot. And I, like, when my mother would tell me, this is how you do this or that or whatever, and literally tried to have them taken from me, but in this case, I was not focused on, I felt a lot of anger toward her, but I was not focused on that. I was only focused on making sure my kids were safe. You know what I mean? And it sounds like his mother took her rage against her own mother out on him. Jack, tell me if I'm right, if you get a minute. Okay. And that's awful. And I'm so sorry, but I think you're right. I think it does. What you see here is you see his mother being traumatized by her mother and therefore traumatizing her son, and then, like he said, it probably goes way further back.
All the way down the line. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this is why we break the cycle. I know you guys are doing really great with your own kids. So that's a symbol of that. Hello, Piper. Piper in the house, everybody. Crystal Mountain says, breaking point will be, hey, Crystal, I got your email and I will be responding, by the way. The breaking point will be different with different people and events. I broke contact with a sibling after she lied to doctors about me and also turned me over to my abusive ex as well. Oh my gosh. That's awful. I think it's worse when it's a family member somehow. When I don't know if worse is the right word, but to be betrayed in a way you don't expect. Because I always knew that my mother was toxic. I knew that she didn't like me very much, but I didn't know that she would do that she would literally try to have I thought if she ever had a problem with my parenting, which she often did, that she would talk to me about it.
Right.
But she didn't.
Talking about it.
Right.
Well, about it and talking about it and talking. Yeah.
It just, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it is.
Right. They pushed it past the point to it's the point of no return. And
right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So right. What? Okay. Sorry. I had, yes. Okay. Peggy says, I didn't have the thought or guts to leave with family. Didn't even recognize it. But later I befriended another. It took a while and talking to trusted friends to break contact. Yeah. And I think in some ways it feels maybe harder when it's a friend in different ways because
mm-hmm.
You can't see it as much, or maybe you tolerate more because you like the person. You know what I mean? Like, I know that sounds weird, but there's a certain,
it's hard with friends. You're not living with them.
Right.
And
right.
They can be in your daily life, but you can always be like, I'll text you later.
Right.
It's not the same as when it's in your house or in your family. It's a totally,
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But maybe when you do have to deal with them on a regular basis, it can be rough.
It can be rough. Yeah. That's awful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then there's the ones that you work with too. And whether those are friends or just people you work with, girl, anyway. Okay.
It's
let's see.
Enough betrayal is enough at a certain
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really is.
And you struggle because you're wanting to be a fair and equitable person that understands people have bad days and make mistakes and can even make mistakes because of those bad days, which look intentional or whatever. And you want to be supportive as a friend, partner, mm-hmm. child, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think we get trained to do that for too long.
That's very valid. That's a really important point. So when we are raised by toxic people, or even if just we had certain traumas, we are taught that love means service, or love means,
mm-hmm.
Doing what I say. Love means, in order to be loved, you must serve. Well, that's what I was taught.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really, like, your parents are supposed to love you because they have you. I mean, when you're a child, just because you're just because you're their child. And I always find that to be very strange that so many of us had parents who weren't capable of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what a lot of it comes down to is is, I mean, we all know, we don't have to go into all that, but it's the what they went through. And in fact, we'll talk about this for a minute. Yep. Real quick. Okay. So there are parents who, okay, sorry. I just realized I went 2 p.m. That's fine. There are parents who have this, they have their children too early, or they had, their own trauma, or they, whatever, and they think they're doing the right thing. They're like, like my mom thought that because she always fed us and always gave us, whatever medical care we needed, and whatever, and we had a nice place to live, and we had nice clothing and things like that. We were clean, that she was doing better than her parent, because her parent was only 15 when she was born.
Right.
And that really was better. Mm-hmm. But she didn't delete she added some extra stuff that didn't happen to her directly. And then she continued some of that stuff. So she continued with the quote unquote physical punishments, or, whatever. And sometimes those were a little bit out of control. But it was really the emotional stuff, I think, that really, anyway, stop talking. Okay. Any other thoughts on that before we go to the next?
No.
Okay. Let's see here. So Jack asks Mima if her husband was the golden child of the family. Excuse me, the golden child of the family. Jack says he was a golden. Now this is exactly what I thought. He was the golden child to the grandmother, but a scapegoat for his mother. I was also the scapegoat, the black sheep of the family, and that's okay. I've learned since then that that's probably a good thing.
Being the scapegoat, oh yeah.
Yeah, because you're the one that tells the truth, and they don't like that.
Right. There's a great little book called Scapegoat by it's Carl Jung, and it's a little tiny short book, and it saved me years ago. Oh, somebody's like, read this, and I'm like, you want me to read Jung? Okay, so why not? It helped me put it in perspective, the scapegoat, like how you can see how it's actually giving you the resilience and the it actually keeps you out of the mix, because the golden child is the most pressure.
Yes.
There's a lot of pressure to maintain, because we've got to remember, every role that you're in with a toxic person is survival. Mm-hmm. And when you have to survive by being perfect.
Yeah.
And the spitting image of doing the things that the narcissist wants, you're always in the spotlight.
Yeah, that's right.
Not that it's easy being a scapegoat. The thing is, you don't want to be around them ever, but after the fact, what sticks?
That's right.
It's a hard one for, yeah.
It's really true. Yep. Okay, let's see here. Mima says, I think it takes more than one catalyst. I think it takes more than one catalyst. Reading my hubby's medical records after an ER visit, where he blamed me for physically hurting him after he hurt me that very day.
Oh my gosh. Classic, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm so sorry, but good for you for seeing it. And look, it does often take more than one catalyst.
Yeah.
You have to, what I was trying to say, and I got distracted from saying, was our parents, they conditioned a lot of us, not all of us, but those of us who did have toxic parents, we were conditioned to accept crap, to accept crumbs, to accept less than we deserve, and to think that we were not important enough to be treated with basic dignity and respect. Mm-hmm. And that's why we get stuck. They conditioned us for those people.
Right. And and as a human being, as we are, we're not valid. Mm-hmm. I think exactly. I think it does take more than, I think the catalyst is often just, somebody said this recently to me. They said, oh my gosh, this is all too much. It's like I'm just now seeing the truth of everything I've lived for the past 20 years. And I could hear in their voice that this was scary. This was like, I said, yeah, you've opened the door, and down that hall that you see, there's just 1,000 doors. And every time you walk past them, 8 or 10 of them open. And they're just like, you can't stop seeing the effects. And that becomes the catalyst sometimes. It's like the culmination of a lot of things.
That's right. Let's see here. And that's why, but it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't always matter what the catalyst is.
No, it doesn't. It's just interesting to hear them, so that people can start to think for themselves about what is my life and what's going on in it, and where's my breaking point, and do I need to get there, or is this enough? Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
How long will you spend being abused before you know what I mean? That's what it
Right.
comes down to. If I had known then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have tolerated the stuff I tolerated as
Exactly.
long at least. Right. Um, oh, and then there's this is kind of an anti-catalyst that I had, and maybe a lot of you have experienced, but like with my two, I'll tell you both. With my parents, it was a matter of I was taught excuse me, taught early that um, you know, if you don't have your family, you know, you might be dead in addition, nobody will care.
Nobody
That
cares.
sounds stupid, but that's what I was told all the time. And I
Mm-hmm.
believed that. I believed what happened, you know, what if this happens and that? It was fear that's kept me stuck. With my ex-husband, it was partially fear, but it was mostly that I married him. And I thought to myself, I don't want to be one of those people who gets divorced 3 times or whatever. You know what I mean? Or
Oh
two
yeah.
times or
Yeah. Uh-huh.
ever. You know, I thought when I got married, I was going to be married till I was dead. Just
Mm-hmm.
turns out I will, but not to that person. So it's good stuff. You know what I mean?
I get you. You know, I get you. And I think that's kind of what I was saying earlier when I was saying it. I had to start looking at myself for the catalyst instead of externally, what are they doing? They've done
Right.
enough. Honestly, you guys, if you're dealing with a narcissist, they've already done enough.
Mhm.
And it's in ourself. I had to realize that I was afraid. Okay, so what, right?
Mhm.
I'm afraid of what? I'm afraid of abandonment. I'm afraid, like the stuff you're saying, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm afraid I won't, they'll be alone forever. That like the things that people say. And then I realized wait, it's none of that. It's none of that. I'm afraid of change. Hate it.
Change. Oh,
Still
me
hate it.
too.
Don't like it. I hate
Right.
transition. I hate change. I don't like it. And that was it. And then I'm like, oh, come on. Life is change, girl. Go.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And
Totally.
but it took a while. It took multiple catalysts.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, okay. And so like with I think this is important to identify the reasons you're staying. And I bet you all of us could on some level say trauma bonding had something to do with it, as
Mhm.
well as our previous conditioning. But
Right.
also, you know, I really think it's fear on some of something, like
Mhm.
for me. And so like with my mother, it was fear of what if I lose everything and I have nowhere to go? What if I become homeless and I have nowhere? Am I really going to die in a ditch? You know?
Mhm.
And that was her favorite thing to tell me. And then with my ex, again, it was just I had made this rule for myself, and I'm usually very good at following rules for myself. And so it was sort of a like a personal failure in my head that if I left, I would have failed and I probably would be
Right.
alone forever. And then I
Mhm.
had a kid, and
Right.
but sometimes you just, and that's why I mean I'm honest about it. For me, in both cases, it was my kids,
Right.
and I feel kind of embarrassed about that. I wish
No,
it was, you know.
I think we all sometimes we need an external marker
Yes, yes.
because
Well,
you're actually saving the little girl in you when you're saving your kid.
that's right. That's
There,
right.
you do that one.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. But I didn't know it at the time, but you're absolutely
Right,
right.
right, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us who have been through this, any type of trauma in childhood become almost a little overprotective
Of
of
our
our
kids.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know I'm very protective of like, I don't want anybody to hurt my kids' feelings. I mean, I know it happens and I'm not trying to be like, you know, but secretly when it happens, I want to go beat somebody up. Okay.
Right.
But I don't. But I feel protective of their feelings and their thoughts, and I want them to feel able to express themselves. And boy,
Right.
do they. Boy, do they.
How could they just temper it a little?
Can we find some?
Kids.
No, they're really good kids. They're really good kids. But I do feel a little, you know, yeah, it's fun.
No,
Okay.
I was gonna say something. Wait, you said
Uh-huh.
fear. Story of fear. So
Yeah.
somebody told me that they were terrified of 3 things, and it was getting sick and dying alone in their apartment.
Mm-hmm.
No one would find them. That whole thing. Breaking down on the freeway and having no one to call because didn't know how to. She's like, I could learn to change a tire, but I have physical pain, and it would be very difficult for me. And on the freeway, and it was always the freeway. And she's like, but I'm not going to avoid the freeway. But blah, blah.
Right.
Anyway, and then the third one, what was the third one? Oh my God, I forgot the third one. So we'll just do 2. So within a month of finally just leaving this psychopath, she got really, really sick and was alone in her apartment and alone in her house, really, really sick. And then knock, 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 a friend comes over for no reason. And she's on the floor crying fever. And her friend's like, oh, honey, sticks her in the shower, like helps her out, makes her dinner, and then leaves, and was like, "You're."
Oh,
And so she's like, "It was answered. It happened. Somebody took care of me." And then she's driving on the freeway. I'm not kidding you. A few weeks later, boom, car breaks down.
oh.
She pulls over and she's panicking. Oh my gosh, my worst fears are coming true. And somebody pulls over to help her. They call a tow truck, and it was all just, she's like, it was seamless. It all just took care of itself. Not that everyone's going to have that kind of lucky flow of things, but I think sometimes what I'm saying is our fears are bigger
Mm.
than they need to be.
Oh yeah. I can tell you a real quick similar story. I have a client right now who, she's my age. We were born the same month anyway. And and she was afraid that, because actually her person left her. And she was just horrified. She thought we were going to be married forever, whatever. And then she ended up meeting this amazing guy, you guys. I'm just like, wow. It's almost like a fairy tale. It's crazy. But I think, the point of these stories is not to tell you that everything's going to be perfect, because stuff does suck sometimes. But just to, right?
Yeah.
But just to say, like, you can and should look forward to some good things without, it might be hard in the first few months or even the first year, but there's also this other side of it. Like, you realize you can pick the color for the walls, or you can buy the curtains you want,
I think when I told her, when I said something back to this person, like, well, that just worked out fine for you, but not for everyone.
Right.
And it's pragmatic, right? Well, that's great for you, but not everyone's that lucky. She said, yeah, but I knew in that moment that I would have been okay had that person not come to help. I knew that I had it in me, because I had my phone out ready to call for a tow. I got out of my car and went where I was safe I took care of myself. And then when she was sick, she goes, I would have been fine.
Oh,
Just felt emotionally. So it's sort of like, yes, okay, that's really great that those things happen, but also, and then she said the next time she got sick, she wasn't scared. She just took care of herself. And then, so it's these fears that we have that cannot hold us. We can't stay bound to fear.
That's right.
Can't stay in something that's hurting you and is toxic for you and is, abusive to you, because you're afraid of the unknown.
Yep. Kelly Starlight says, you're right. When he yelled at my son and tried to start a fight, that was it. Our children, we protect our children more than we protect ourselves. That's right. A lot of us do. Yeah. And I think Lise is right when, you were right when you said that, you're sort of protecting your inner child in that moment by protecting your own children. And I think that's really true for those of us who react that way. I mean, how many of us have the mama or papa bear thing? Like, I'm the sweetest person you ever want to meet until you mess with the children. Then I have no mercy. Okay. The only reason I haven't hurt certain people in my life for what they did to my children is that I don't really think I want to go to prison. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
I'm not saying
you have self-restraint.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and yeah, I can't even. So, yeah, but I think that's absolutely true. And I wish I could say, I want to be able to say, look, I left for the right reason. I left because this person was terrible, but I tolerated it because of childhood.
Well, you didn't have you now.
That's right.
Standing up.
That's right.
You had you back then, who was
Yes.
didn't have all this wisdom, knowledge, and healing in under.
That's right. That's right. And this is, again, part of why we do what we do, because we want to maybe to help you, save some time or some,
Don't reinvent the wheel. That's
exactly. That's it. That's it. Let's see here. Okay, so we have more than one. Okay. Jack agrees, more than one catalyst or narcissistic injury with Dragon's point. Yeah, look, I certainly don't say, when I'm saying what my breaking point was, I'm not saying that there weren't a lot of other reasons I should have gone. That was just for me
the moment.
Yes. Adrian says, my narcissist aunt came back. It's the worst. She's worse now. Also, the situation was crazy. Also, the situation was crazy. The supply watched my every move and got in front of me, then just stared at all. And my aunt will just stare nonstop. Yeah, Adrian, it sounds like that's a very toxic situation. It's so she came back, and now it's made it worse because her partner apparently is obsessed with you as well as she is. I need to know more about that to tell you the right answer. But any thoughts, Lise?
I'm not following it 100%.
Yeah. It's hard to hurry up and time what you want.
Missing from, it's hard to translate from chat to my ear, and then
sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Cimarine says, yeah, that needs for explanation, political reasons. The long and short of it is I'm sticking to my boundaries. And that's the right thing to do for both yourself and your kids. And I agree with your choice. Okay, because as she mentioned earlier in the chat, their oldest child is trans. And the reason she changed her name is because J.K. Rowling, I guess Huffle is one of those Harry Potter things. Sorry for my ignorance. And she changed her name because J.K. Rowling has come out against trans people, I believe. So therefore, we are not, she prefers not to do that. Okay. Yeah. Tamar says, we had a joint account until I needed a break. And then he emptied the joint account and left enough to live on monthly only because control. That's financial abuse right there. Yep.
It's interesting. What I'm hearing a lot of is survival.
Yeah.
When it threatens survival, when it threatens your kids' survival, when it threatens your financial survival, I'm hearing that. That's the theme I'm hearing.
For sure. Yeah. And I think, a lot of times we also get left, right? And so when people get left, then they have a whole other thing to figure out, right? Like this, talking about my client earlier, she didn't think, and by the way, she's gorgeous, but she didn't find herself attractive or worthy. And like, she's like, everybody wants to look like her, gorgeous. You know what I mean? So like, it was so surprising to me to hear this gorgeous woman. And I can't tell you how many gorgeous people I've heard say exactly that. But yeah, because they destroy you as a human, your self-esteem and if you ever had any.
You're either used because you're gorgeous, and then you don't understand that gorgeous is all the way through. Right. And it probably is in a lot in people that you're talking to.
That's right. That's right.
And so you think this superficial, like I've had very beautiful clients say, yeah, but so what?
Right.
People use me for this. They either love me or hate me for it. I can't help it. It's like my face, whatever,
Right.
And that people will either love them or hate them because of their looks. And I realize people go, "Oh, poor you, you're so pretty," but really, when they've been in the same situations with narcissists, they are objects.
That's right. And I'll tell you something. I've never been that pretty where somebody hated me for being so pretty. but there,
either. But
but there was a time in my life when I was cuter than this, and I did see people treating me that way. And probably not to that same extent, of course.
No.
But, yeah. But I definitely was. All right. Rebel Shell says, here's my question. If you have one sister that you talk to, but you don't talk to the rest, what do you do as this sister won't stand up or tell me about the knives being thrown? Look, you should probably say thank you to that sister. If you're talking to her and she's not spilling the poison into your life. And I'm not trying to be a jerk when I say that, but the truth is that knowing those things, it only makes it like, hey, I'll tell you what I'm saying. Okay, hold on. In my own situation, a cousin kept reaching out to me and telling me all the things that were being said about me in the family after I disengaged from my parent. And I eventually had to stop talking to her because she was triggering me and it was impeding my healing. Because the truth is, it doesn't matter what they're saying about you. It doesn't matter about the knives being thrown unless it's going to affect you now personally, like in your life. Otherwise you don't need to know that stuff. Like what other people think of us is none of our damn business. You know what I mean? I know that's a quote, but on some level that's true. If those people are no longer in your life and cannot directly affect you, like take away your money or hurt your kids or whatever, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like maybe, hopefully, in the best case scenario, she's trying to have a relationship with you personally, and one that isn't entangling all the toxic stuff from both of your familial line, right? And so, yeah, I would take that as a positive.
Right. But if it is,
I'd be careful because
right.
What is she saying the other direction? It's so tricky, right?
Yeah, it's tricky because on the flip side of that, like that same cousin told me, the first thing she said to me and all of that was, they're sending someone to your house. They're sending your brother to your house to try to talk some sense into you. So I was able to cut that off. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And hopefully she would. And that may be a conversation. Hey, I appreciate you not bringing them into it, but if there is ever anything I need to protect myself from, I'm fine hearing that. And that may be enough.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 100%. Okay, let's see here. And then we have Jack says to you, I guess I was lucky, even if I was the narcissist grandma's golden child. It was my mother's scapegoat, but oh, my 3 younger sisters resented the first role. Oh yeah, that's another thing that's really difficult, is when you have a golden child. Toxic parents and grandparents have a tendency to want to pit their children against one another, because that way nobody's going to gang up together and go against the parent. And my mother, in my case, did that with my brother, who I was close to, I thought, until that moment, and twisted it around and put him on her side by telling a lot of lies about me. And I've never forgiven him. I mean, I forgave him, but I'm not going to be in his life anymore. So, it is what it is. I tried.
Saying his sisters resented his role as the golden child with grandma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Just trying to think of, my mother has told me she was the golden child. My grandpa was a malignant narcissist, and she's told me that it was really difficult because she's not a narcissist, right? She got a lot of empathy, and it affected her in a way where it made her shut her empathy back inside herself, because if she showed empathy to the scapegoat, then he got in more trouble.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And at the same time, she had to live her whole life with him resenting her. Wasn't narcissistic either. It was just that the way that, it's being in that. And she got help for herself. He didn't. So
right.
He understood what was going on. He just kept it to himself his whole life, sadly.
Right. Lise, write this down.
Okay.
Let's talk about generational trauma next week. Okay.
Okay, good.
Because there's a lot to unpack there. Sorry, I didn't mean to be like,
no, like, yes.
Good. Okay. Right. Okay. I'm supposed to be on a call 1 minute ago, so I'm going to read this one more comment from Crystal, and then we're going to get ready to wrap up, because I think Crystal's comment is valid and important. Yes. She says, they could be lying about their past as well. My ex believes his mother is the greatest mom, but she's actually a psycho, or she said psychotic, and also abandoned the kids several times. And that's another valid point. Sometimes we believe the stories we're told, and narcissists will do the same thing about our childhood. I've had several clients who thought they had a perfect childhood until they realized they were in a relationship with a narcissist, and then they looked back at their childhood and they went, "Oh crap!"
Yep, all the time. And that's not to say that it's not made up. It's real.
Right.
Like it is. No one's coaching that. It just comes out. No one's steering anybody in any direction. It's like, wait a minute. Is this normal for a parent? So how do we know that isn't happening to the narcissist too? Of course.
That's right.
They're still victims of their narcissistic parent.
That's right. Or even sometimes their parents aren't narcissistic, but they're just unavailable.
Right.
Yeah.
That happened to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they may not recognize it because it's normalized to them.
Right. And like I said, when you look at, in even my own situation, my parents thought they were doing better because there was always food in the house. We had vitamins, we had medicine, we had clothing that was new and not, you know what I mean? We were clean. But she was raised by a person who loved her, but also had she was a child when she had most of her kids. So, okay. All right. We're going to get ready to wrap up for right now. Watch the chat for Simmarine to share the reminders and everything. And we will see you guys next week at the same approximate time. and soon we'll also be doing a second stream over on Lisa's channel for the next, I think with maybe starting next week. If we can do that. And then we'll see you over there on Fridays as well. All right. Lise, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will, all right, we'll see all of you guys soon-ish.
Bye.